Afternoon. Darn rain anyway.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, but I'm glad. I'm really anxious to share some of our stories from the early days of public access because we've been there just for almost from the inception. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the current situation, and welcome very much to Conversations. It's a great pleasure, a distinct pleasure for me to welcome to the program Florence M. Rice. And Florence M. Rice is a pioneer public access producer. We were just sort of reminiscing. We both go way back in terms of this public access business. Yeah. And she's a crusader for human rights in the best sense of the word. She has a great sense of social conscience and responsibility. And it is a distinct honor and pleasure to welcome you to the program, Florence M. Rice.
And Harold, thank you for having me.
Heartfelt and true.
Really,
I'm really happy with that.
Really.
Now, we're going to be talking about a number of things, including the current situation as far as politics and whatnot's going on. But I wonder if maybe you could share with the audience your own personal background, where you were born and raised, some education, some of your early experience, and then we can get into a conversation about the human condition.
I'd like to say I was raised in foster homes. I had 5 foster homes.
Oh, boy.
There's a place called the Colored Orphan Asylum. That's 261st Street in Riverdale.
It was all in New York City?
All in New York, yeah,
right,
New York State, yes. And I came through that. I lived with 5 different families. And I'm just glad that I grew to be an adult and responsible and able to function.
You certainly have. You certainly have done
and not be angry about my past like
all
a
right,
lot of
that's
people
interesting. That's interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing. There are some things that we might be a little taken chagrin. Were you aware of your biological parents or not? I don't mean to pry, but 5.
I would say I was aware of my mother, but I never. I think I didn't see her almost till I was grown.
Oh, really?
Yes, in my young days, we had no contact. I can remember many times when other young people had visitors, I just hoped that my mother would show up, but that never happened.
At the orphanage, right?
Well, at the orphanage, because that's when there was, otherwise in the foster homes, you were active, the families and...
I don't make a fine point on it, but you were an infant when you were in the orphanage?
I went in Staten Island in 1922.
I see.
1922. From there, I went to the.
And I don't mean. How old would you have been when?
I must have been only 2.
Only 2. And what happened in the first 2 years of your life?
I don't know. I haven't
you just don't even know. You don't have a record of that. They don't have a record of that.
No.
Because we're learning that those early years are so impressive in terms of making an impression on people, aren't they?
Well, yes, I think it's important. In fact, when you speak about that, now you carry me back to the East Side. I remember the East Side. I remember, I think there was an undertaker in that building. I remember steps. And I remember the gas light, and I remember the railroad.
You can remember gas light.
I can rember the L.
The L.
So, so
2nd Avenue L,
well,
was there, or no?
the must have been 3rd. I really don't, but I remember an L.
Yeah, you can remember even as an infant.
It was interesting when you begin to sort of see, and then also know the history of the orphanage, which was set up by Quakers.
It was a Quaker.
The Quakers started from down, I forget the street, that it started down on the East Side. And
you have good remembrance of that experience?
When I really try real hard, I can go back. But what happened, I had decided just to close that part of my life. I never... The fact that you said the Colored Orphan Asylum, you never wanted, because asylums, was always, if somebody come out of an asylum, they
like
had to
lunatic.
Hey, we're a lunatic.
You're no lunatic. I'm here to testify.
So I never even discussed, just a number of years ago, I even started talking about that. And
well, I don't want to have you talking about things if it's uncomfortable to you. But,
it's not, because what I want to send a message out there, even though I didn't have a mother and father, that I still was able to grow up and being a responsible adult.
Well, you certainly have. Something right has happened, because you're one of the best human beings I know, and here you are getting into adulthood.
Yeah, and you begin to just you close the door on the past. And I had a daughter, naturally, out of wedlock, and that's been the joy of my life for the last umpteen years.
And you got Ronald?
And
Ronald?
Oh, Ronald, my son-in-law, which I made son-in-law day, celebrate April 10th is son-in-law day. Oh, he's a beautiful guy.
And is he the husband of your daughter?
My daughter, and they've been married 51 years.
Yeah, nice guy. I had to talk on the telephone. Nice guy. I was going to say, Ron's a nice guy.
Oh, yeah. I told my daughter the other day, I said she could pick a husband.
Pick men, huh?
Yeah, she knew how to pick
She
men.
could be a matchmaker.
Yeah,
Huh? She could do so well for others. Right.
But what I like
and that's really important. Yeah.
And what I like to tell some young people that regardless, a lot of people hold it bitter because they haven't had a mother and father. But I'm saying you never know what happened in their lives that made them make the decisions.
That's right. It's
so
really...
therefore you cannot say, even though for many years I was angry, but at the same time, as I look back, you can't, because you don't know. You know what you encounter as an adult and as a person growing up. And I always like to say, God takes care of babies and fools.
All right. Which he does.
So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, right. That's good. Yeah. And it's really hard to know the nuance between, like, people judge on basis of rumor and things. You can't know the nuance of what's really going on between
really
a couple
don't know.
people, do you?
No,
you can't know that.
You really
you can only make surmises.
You can't make judgments on other people
because
you don't know what they've encountered in life.
That's right.
And what has caused them.
Or all the interrelated circumstances of things that, made it.
Right.
Also, generationally, it seems to me that some of the young people might, the situations in historical. There's a fellow I like, James Joyce, the poet, who says history is a nightmare. Sometimes I see history as a nightmare from which we're awakening. And that is a situation that people were in historically. There are opportunities now that simply just weren't available.
Well, when I was coming along, there were very few opportunities. I like to always say when I started out, I had a daughter, had to take care of her. And I like to say I remember doing days work and only getting a quarter an hour.
Really?
Yeah, in the Bronx. And, but then I remember going to work in the laundry. And that's when I think we made $12.75 with the NRA.
Was that some sort of a minimum thing that Mr.
It was
Roosevelt
a minimum
brought?
wage, and
hard times,
that was
the
good.
Depression.
You could pay your rent.
You could pay your
people
rent.
now need 2 or 3 jobs to be able to pay their.
And still they can't make it. They still got their nose underwater at that. Yeah, it's really there's something bad there.
It's sort of it's difficult, but God has spared me to come through it.
Yes, and to get here to this program today. And you've put a couple of programs of your own under your belt, too, as I would say, because you're a pioneer in terms of the access. One last thing I know we'll get into it, because you are a pioneer in terms of public access. We want to talk about that. But you said you came to know your mother there when you were in the 20s or something? You finally met up with her?
No, I was put in the institution. I call it the institution. At 2. That period I don't remember.
But do you, at the later age, you did come to meet her?
Oh,
did I hear you say, or maybe I heard
Well,
you.
I think, no. There was no contact till I was about 13 or 14.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You had contact 13, 14.
But it's a stranger. That's what I try to tell parents. If you don't have that bond, and if a parent, you don't see their children, and make no attempt to see them, then they can't expect nothing too much from you.
Okay. Well, Anyway, that's an interesting, and then schooling. You were able to get some schooling done in the institutions or in the public schools
Well,
or whatever?
no, the farthest I went was the 8th grade.
Okay.
I went the 8th grade, PS 40 in Queens, Jamaica. And that's about as far as I went.
You remember how you liked school? Do you remember you liked it or not?
I guess I did.
You did,
you know, I would say. But what's so interesting by going and being in number Foster home, I went to school in Peekskill.
All right. You moved around.
Oh, yeah. We went to Spark Hill in Spark Hill, New York. And between it all, I did come out with an 8th grade with a diploma from one school. That's PS 40.
Right. And you were learning that?
Well,
because you're sure intellectually curious.
Schools then taught you, schools then taught children, young adults. You learned how to read, you learned how to write, you learned how to sort of do your math. But today, our children are not being taught.
You don't think so?
They're definitely not. I'm concerned, especially with the African-American children and the Spanish children. They're really being geared for the prisons.
You really think that?
I definitely do.
We got 2 million in prison in this country now.
And
the largest percentage.
And they're mostly blacks and Puerto Ricans.
Undoubtedly, that is the case.
And that's the sad part about it.
Yeah.
Because a friend of mine who works with foster children find a recidivism, which it's not good.
No.
It's not good.
No.
And unless people begin to realize what's happening, these young people's lives are ruined.
But it's been bad quite a bit of the time, hasn't it? I mean, if we think back to 100 years ago, we had chattel slavery, for crying out loud.
Well,
and things weren't all that great.
No.
Or just.
No, but
do you think the trend is it's getting worse? Do you think?
Racism in this country has become worse.
You think it's getting worse?
Racism in this country is become worse. In fact,
what's his name? Mr. Murdahl said that is the American dilemma, is racism.
Well, it is.
And now you say it's getting worse.
It is worse because one of the concerns that, I don't know if you know Jim Horton, but the fact over 51% of African American men are out of job. You can go through Harlem. You can go through Harlem, and you will see all white workers. You don't see black men. And that's one of the concerns. We're having a conference, I think it's April 2nd.
White workers doing the work that those men could do who live
there.
They're
just not, they are not. 51% of African-American men are out of work.
Now, has that been the case? Now, you got a couple of years now. You've grown from 20s and that. Has that been the case throughout the period? You watched Harlem over a long period of time? Has it always been such a high percentage of that? Or the trend is what I'm getting at.
The fact is, and I'm not really the person to talk on it, but the fact is you don't have, digging, the pick and the shovel. You don't have that. Mostly everything is technology. So, but in the construction area is very racist.
It is
racist. Very racist.
With the unions? And
they're unions, but the unions to me have always been racist.
Have they really?
Yes.
The unions are supposed to be a force for justice and social justice. You don't think that's always the case?
My union, when I testified in Adam Powell's hearing,
yes,
they told me that if I testified at that hearing, I would never work again.
No fooling.
And I never worked another day.
Now, what was that about? Politics?
No, it was just the fact I was talking about the discrimination.
No.
And my agent told me that I wasn't to testify.
Now, I don't want to press you, but what union was that? What would you have said about Mr. Powell? And what was it they would have objected to? And what is that about?
No, what I was talking about at that time was the racism that was in, discrimination. The word was discrimination.
Well, racism, but a lot of that discrimination is racially based.
At that time, it was discrimination, and I was talking about the way blacks were handled and the way whites were handled.
And they took objection to that?
They
The
objection,
union,
and there's a book called Racism in America.
yeah, by?
That's by Herbert Hill, who just passed away.
That's the trouble. Too many people are passing.
Yeah, passed away, Herb Hill, and I forget the other man. And then I'm in a number of books just speaking to that, Black Women in White America.
Yeah. Well,
So,
do you remember
Gerda Lerner.
Well, we had that. We had all that stuff with Stokely Carmichael, and we had Mr. King, and we had Malcolm X, and we had Lyndon Johnson, the Voting Rights Act, and all of these kind of things back in the 60s. It's been a trial ever since I can remember. It's been a central question that has been addressed. And I'm very sorry to hear you say that in this year, 2005, the trends are making things worse.
The trend is worse. And I was reading something by the Bahas, and the thing that racism is going to destroy this country.
I think it could, not only this country.
It is.
And, you know, by extension, in a certain sense, it could destroy this world, because it is a pattern that the United States is putting out.
Put through
It's a central question.
So, therefore, it's sad that that this country in 2005, as far as African Americans are concerned, it looks bleak to me. For the young people, what bothers me for the young people, many of them have finished college. They can't get a job. Number one, because they only speak one language. If you only speak one language.
What language? You mean English?
If they only speak English, you can't get a job
unless you have to speak.
You have to speak languages. And when you're hired today, they want to know if you're bilingual.
Oh, really? I'm not Are you bilingual?
I'm not, but I've come out of that. But I'm just saying what the young people find themselves. If you can go on right now on 125th Street, and you'll find very few African American blacks working.
Really?
That's right.
How about their owning of the buildings and the shops and the things? And how about the capital assets and the ownership of the capital assets?
I'm not that good. I have other people who can talk.
But you understand what I'm saying?
We all know.
Somebody told me the other day that a whole lot of those buildings are owned by white folk.
Well, this is true. This is true, but what you have to realize over the years, you know, slavery, 1863, they were freed. They freed the slaves, then they didn't let them know that until June 13th. But what do you sort of begin to understand over the years how black Americans here was denied. When I was much younger, there were stores like Bloomstein where blacks couldn't. It was Adam Powell that came along, Con Edison Telephone Company. We didn't work there. So
he came and tried to pioneer to get you so you could?
Well, the history speaks for itself.
The
fact that what he has done, what he has done over the years.
Major voice.
But one of the concerns that I redlining.
Yes, it's still going on as far as I tell.
And it still goes on today.
Right.
Because
and somebody's making $1 out of it.
African Americans cannot borrow the kind of money that whites can borrow. That's known.
They haven't got a leg up with the capital assets and all that.
So my whole thing over the years, racism is alive and well, and you just have to keep working at it.
I saw a thing on television. We're in Black History Week now, a month or something. I think. But I saw a thing.
And I'm not the person to be talking.
No, but I mean, we're
subject.
just talking. Well, all right. And neither am I really. But I saw a thing.
I have my own feelings. What it has, racism has done, and everybody can come here and prosper in this country, except African Americans.
It's been particularly
And the sad
harsh.
part, you have your new people come in that also bring this racism and attitudes.
That's what I'm saying. It's all over the world.
Well,
it's really a horror in a very real sense. I saw a thing where they were talking about, there was I forget exactly the context, I think it was Quakers involved, but there was they had the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, and there was a statement made that they were making a case at that time that the slaves who were still slaves were better off than the people in the North what were free, because at least the slaves had to be given a certain measure of something, whereas the others were just totally at the behest of the, you know, it was worse in the North even.
Whenever, as far as I'm concerned, slavery. Do you
it's
know?
Absurd.
Wait, let
it's
me
absurd.
say this, because like I said, I'm not the person to talk on this subject. But do you know when they set up schools for African Americans for the slaves? They never. The first thing the schools were set up for us to take care of the master: washing, cooking, sewing, and ironing.
You got a class in washing and ironing.
That's all. That's all it was. Farming.
Yeah.
So economics was something that was never included in those schools. So therefore, many of the people, and there were some very people who develop business. You have the Oklahoma, you have the Florida, but every time it was started, you found out how the Ku Klux Klan. So there's a whole history.
Yeah, I know.
And there's people that can talk about it much better than I can.
I know it was there. But anyway, they made that point. But anyway, and you've been doing it. Now, you have, among other things, you are a pioneer in terms of this where we're now. We're at MNN here, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, part of the public access system of television. And I know you've been doing that since forever, almost, doing public. Maybe you could tell me, how did you get started with public access? When did you get started? And tell us a little bit about your career or your development of public access
what
programs.
happened is, oh goodness, isn't that something? Is Jackie.
Yeah.
There's a young woman called Jackie. Singer. Jackie, oh golly.
Jackie, I know a Jackie too, but go ahead.
Jackie, and isn't that something?
In public access? No.
No, Jackie, I was in radio. I had been in radio for a long time, in WLIB.
You were in radio on the air?
I was there.
How'd you get there? What'd you do?
Don't ask me.
Oh, no. Yes. So were you doing a disc jockey thing or commentary?
I used to give consumer
advice?
Well, yeah. And I was very heavy into educating poor people about how the credit and how...
Good for you.
Well, so I was.
And this is when you're in your teens or 20s or 30s or 40s?
I was in my 40s.
That's when you got into media.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's when I got there.
Yeah, and you'd been involved in the radio, right?
And I was involved with the radio. Yeah. And Jackie Adams. Jackie Adams.
Different Jackie.
Well, Jackie's responsible for me.
Yeah. She was like a mentor or?
No, she was much younger.
Oh, she was younger?
Much younger.
Yeah.
But she just felt that's what I should do. And somehow she was in it, and she got me to do it.
And what did you do? Can you remember back? What were you doing? And
no, same thing. I've always done consumer education.
Consumer education.
I think it's very, very important.
It certainly is.
I think it should be in every school. I think young people should certainly know about how to handle their own private business, and that's what it is.
And their own economic situation?
Their own economic situation.
I think the economics are really important, you know, because we have
we
get to vote every... We get to vote every
capitalism.
I know.
Knowing it's capitalism.
It's all tilted in favor of a few people, I think. You think? You know, it's a little hard to...
I say, I'm not that good on talking about, I just keep saying that it's important that economics, and I'm saying to all young people, you teach them about economics. What is capitalism? How does this country function?
Oh, and that's what you've been teaching?
Oh, I did in my courses.
Let me ask you a question, Florence M. Rice. What is capitalism and how does it function?
Oh, please, let me say, in this country today, it's oh God, no! Don't let me say what I was started to say.
All right.
It's really first thing you learn, you know, when you were young, you were taught to be honest and to tell the truth.
Good idea, generally.
But that's, no, it's not.
You don't think so?
No,
Really?
telling the truth in this society today doesn't get you anything.
Is that right?
That's right.
You think that?
No.
Yeah, but
Being
what about
honest,
with your family and your
something
friends?
that,
That's
no.
important, don't you think?
Well,
Yeah.
when, you know,
or
most,
with the close people
most
and
families.
the dog, you know, with
No.
the people that are close, to tell the truth is still a good byword, I think, don't you? No?
Telling the truth?
Yeah, with your
Not
family.
when you get out here and have to
Oh, you're
deal with these agencies
these-
and these landlords.
these sharks,
And
yeah.
these sharks out here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always say the only difference, always, you hear them talk about years ago about the mafia.
Yeah.
Well, I say the only difference, the mafia has moved up to the corporate world.
That's all. And into some people think into the White House. But
well,
that's another
it's
question,
all
you know,
over. We won't even, I won't even get into that.
The
Yeah.
politics and the business are
Yeah.
all sort of mixed up, yeah. But you think it really is that kind of dog-eat-dog kind of situation
Well, in
out
today's
there?
society, yes.
And what's the trend? Is it getting worse?
It's getting worse.
Getting worse through
When
time.
it's getting worse, when people today have to work
Excuse me.
2 and 3 jobs, can't stay home and take care of their families, having their children being left, you know, out there, having where young people now form gangs, and
To protect themselves, maybe?
well, not only
No?
to protect themselves, but to do more harm to other people.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we have to look at.
Have the gangs not always been there?
Not like they are today.
Not now, huh?
Not
Okay.
like they are today.
Uh-huh.
Because one of the things I think the saddest thing is the boy in the Bronx who was killed because he was.
Diallo, you mean?
No, no.
No, the guy that was
the
shot
young boy,
41
the
times?
young boy. No,
Oh,
I'm not
sorry, I don't
talking
know. Yeah,
about
okay.
him.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Just here the other day.
Yeah.
So when you begin to know that kids are killing kids, that's sad.
It's really sad, and the circumstances that force them into that kind of an extreme situation is very sad and upsetting.
Harold, what's happening today is sad. But you know, years ago they took God out of the school. God out of the schools. People used to. People had I always say. A basis. They had a base, and it came out of the church. Today, it's a whole different ball game.
You think so? The churches are still pretty important, aren't they?
The church was very important in black
for a
people's
lot of people,
lives.
yeah.
It was, and so therefore. And
But it still is, isn't it, for a lot of people?
I don't know, because a lot of people children don't go to church. They don't get that support. That's when I guess what helped me.
Yeah.
As a young person, and I just say what I'm seeing at my age now. It's sad. I came down on the train.
Yeah.
And the
through a
kids,
storm to get here. I
Yeah.
thank you for that, and I'm really sorry. It's
but
such a
what was
nasty
so
weather.
sad, the
Yeah.
kids, some of the stuff that was
Acting out,
coming
are they?
out. No, what's coming out their mouths, the names that they were saying, just talking. And it's not like they have any respect for anybody.
Foul mouth, huh?
Yeah, so that's the sad
You
part.
don't think
of
they
it.
don't have respect for elders and so
Oh,
on?
that they don't.
They don't.
That they don't.
Not even at a real level?
No, that they don't. If they did, the language that that I hear on the trains, you wouldn't hear
There's
it.
always been a problem with youth acting out because they're all full of vinegar
but
and
they
energy
didn't
and
talk.
stuff,
They
you know.
didn't speak.
And
They don't. They had a way of respecting older people. Today they don't.
That's sad. That's really sad if that
So
is the
that's,
case.
that makes it bad.
Yeah, that does. That makes it bad. That's a real, because that's part of a deterioration of a society that could really
Well, there's a lot
rot
of
it
things.
from within, and it could, affect. I wonder, though, if we could, you said you started on radio, and when did you first get involved with public access television, where we are now? And I know you've been there for a long time.
Some years. I think we used to meet down at 51 Chambers Street.
51 Chambers?
I think it was 51 Chambers Street. I'm not sure, but we used to meet across, not from the city hall, but the building.
Yeah.
I remember the building on the back.
Yeah.
On I think it's Chambers Street.
There's one Chambers Street. It used to have
But
NYC
that's
was
where
there
we
at one
made
chambers.
half the people. I can't remember the.
Yeah.
A
But
lot
when I
of the
said we,
people.
who do you mean we?
Well, we would meet there and
Yeah,
discuss.
who is we? Who is we?
Oh, don't even ask
No,
me.
but it's
the
some
name.
early public access
Some
things?
they were public access.
Can you cast
access
about and
meetings.
try and get it some sort of a year you're talking about now?
Oh,
Just
golly,
rough, in a
no,
rough kind of way?
years have
Yeah.
slipped me by.
But it would have been back in the 70s even?
It probably in the 70s
Uh-huh.
or the 70s, probably in the 70s.
Because there wasn't any public access before
Wasn't-
about 1970.
But there was people sitting and talking,
Uh-huh.
and then the first time they opened up on 23rd Street.
Oh, I remember that, don't you?
So yeah.
Yeah,
so,
that would have been Sterling Manhattan, I think, then at that time. That was
Yeah.
a different company. You had
Yeah,
Mr. Irving, what
Oh,
was
I
it?
can't-
Irving Kahn.
I can't
That was
remember.
teleprompter.
No.
They had all these companies. And you
Yeah.
had these people that were developing, and you did some programming on 23rd Street. Did you have a program then? I mean,
well, wait a minute.
Yeah, okay.
You know, there used to be on 125th Street.
I remember it well, darling. I was there. I did a lot of
125th
programs.
Street,
It
there
was
was
right there
programs
between.
being done on 125th
I remember
Street.
that studio well. I did a
So-
lot of programs up on 120. I did a program when Mr. Bush.
So you got Bush
Mr. Nixon was being impeached. Remember, we were going to have that Watergate thing? I remember doing a program.
Yeah.
They had a fellow came from the White House. We did
at
a
125th Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Barack Croft was a defender of Mr. Nixon at that time. But I remember that place on 25th Street.
Yeah.
You did programming there as well, right?
I did.
I can remember the people there.
I did programming there. Too.
Now that would have been about 1974.
You had
That was 74.
uh,
So, I mean, that goes pretty far back.
It does.
And you did programming then. So you were doing public access programming in the early 70s then at
In the
125th Street.
Early days.
Yeah. Now, what were you doing then? Do you remember? Were you doing a program? What
well,
was
I
it
think
called?
I was with someone else.
Uh-huh.
With someone else who I'm one of those person never documented
Uh-huh.
a lot of stuff.
But we got you. We
So
got you
really-
pegged. You're on 125th Street in 1974. So we got you there.
Yeah.
And were you doing consumer stuff then?
I've
if you remember?
always just.
You always have.
Because I always felt that what I had learned, that I
Mhm.
just wanted to share it with other people. I
Uh-huh.
think it's very important how to know how to handle one's business, how to know how to handle the telephone company, Con Ed, how to know how to buy insurance. So I thought it was very important.
You were passing this information
I was
on
passing,
using
and
the
I
media.
had very good consultants, so
Uh-huh.
it made it good.
Uh-huh.
And then during that period, the Attorney General Lefkowitz and a lot of the agencies, at that time, Betty Furness and all those people.
Betty Furness, yeah.
So it was just that you had access to those people. It
Yeah.
wasn't that you had any problem
Mhm.
reaching them.
Mm-hmm.
So it
And you
was
you
good.
put the program on Channel J or Channel 60. Remember
I
they used to have
did.
16 and 17. They had
Yeah.
Channel
Yeah.
a C and D and that sort of thing over there.
See, your mind is much better.
Well, I'm
than
not so
mine.
sure. I'm just trying to conjure it up because it goes way the heck back
Yeah.
from the beginning of things. And
Yeah.
I know it seems to me you've been there ever since I can remember. I know you've done some programs here next door at ELA.
ELA.
And do you ever
Oh,
do
yeah,
anything with
David
Bidlow?
Jenkins.
Yeah, David Jenkins. And you did,
yeah.
I remember over there you met
Dave.
Mr. Green. I remember you did programs with Mr. Green when he was the.
Well, I've done over there. I've done many programs. I even.
Well,
I don't want to miss anybody's name, but I
No.
did quite a number of programs
you did a
with
whole
prominent
bunch.
people.
Have you got it all? Have you got those?
I got a lot of
You got all those
tapes.
programs
Yeah.
archived?
Well, you know.
it's
let's
hard
get,
to keep
okay.
track of it all, right?
Now, what happened? All my stuff, my history right now is in storage.
Oh boy.
And I don't know, I have a feeling that all that stuff is lost. I
Uh-oh.
really do.
No, wait,
because,
that's okay.
a lot of stuff the people threw out in black bags.
Now, wait a minute. We're going to have to talk about something
Yeah.
because we're talking now about more recently,
Yeah.
right? You've been doing this you're still doing some programming here and stuff? Or
Oh,
you
yeah.
go? Yeah, okay.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
still doing that
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
You're still
Well,
keeping it going.
with Nat and
Yeah,
David.
Nat
yeah.
Wood, God bless them, and the
Yeah.
people. It's a good place. They got a
Yeah.
lot of good things
Mhm.
going, and you're one of the pioneers of all this, and you've had a great. I remember way back
Oh,
to the
wow.
beginning, and so I congratulate you and I take my hat off to you for doing that early effort at involving people in terms of understanding
You
this
have to.
shark eat shark capitalist world we're living in and how to survive and helping people. I thank you very much
what
for
you
that.
want to give people hope and that people can do it also.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
or protect themselves
and
from the
knowing-
worst examples of the dog-eat-dog kind of
yeah.
thing that people seem
And
to
then-
think is normal. Yeah.
And then I like to always say that you have to sort of, a lot of people feel that they can't do it, and I say you have to have a lot of love in your heart.
Yeah.
And one of the things I like to say, I hate no one.
You hate what?
I hate no one.
Hate no. Mean the same. Like Will Rogers.
I hate no one.
That's the way I am too. I am too. I have to use a few mental tricks to get around some really arrogant people.
Well, sometimes you know that sometimes people get on your nerves and whatever. But you know, generally I like to say, Florence, look at yourself. You know sometimes how you behave. And
have you ever behaved a little bit strange?
Oh, sometimes, yes.
Have you ever thrown off that? Have you really?
Huh?
You're not a perfect angel and all the time?
Of course I'm not an angel.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding, darling. I think the book tells us that none of us is. Never have been, yeah.
I mean, you know, you have attitudes and
yeah,
feelings.
Right. But you like people.
But
you like people?
Oh, yes.
Me too.
Yes,
I do too. I really do. I tend to, and I try to see the best in people. But that can be making you vulnerable in a dog-eat-dog world.
But what I'm saying
yeah.
is good and bad in all of us.
All right, yeah.
That's how I look.
I think the good book tells us that,
yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's...
okay, anyway, so you've been doing that thing and you've been doing a wonderful job as far as from the beginning of this in terms of educating the public to these kind of things and really helping a whole lot of people. But you've had some things happening to you recently that we want to talk about. Okay. And it has to do relevant to maybe some other people. And maybe we could share you've had some difficulty with your living situation and so forth. Maybe we could talk some about that. And we have a DVD with a couple of pictures we might want to show. Yeah. Maybe we could bring it up to date. You, an angel of the airwaves, who's been doing all of this work over these decades.
You.
It's only just true. It's really true. Right. It's really true. You're an angel of what you've been doing. And now you've been suffering some real, sores, as they say.
I'm not only suffering. Think of all the seniors.
Yes.
Or all the people. You know, we have so many people homeless. Mm-hmm. But think about how that's being done to them.
Yes.
And no one.
No, but what is it? We haven't gotten to what we're talking about
yet.
Yes. So you think that there's problems for a lot of the seniors, and there are people who are taking advantage of the seniors in our society now in New York, and it's even caught up with you.
Let's say
and poor people.
Poor people.
Poor old people, let's say particularly, or poor people. All right, fine.
Because people are just being thrown out in the street. Just imagine when I came home that night and stuck the key in the door.
Now, wait a minute. Let's back up.
Okay.
What happened? What are you talking about? You talk about where you've been living. What are you talking about? The situation. Let's talk specifics, and we got some pictures.
Specifically, I was to get some repairs.
You're talking on a place you've been living for quite a while?
I've been living 61 years.
Wait a minute. You've been living in a place for 61 years.
Yeah,
61?
I owned
you
the
didn't
building.
misspeak that.
If I hadn't been minding my business and stop trying to
help the whole world, a good deal of the block by then.
I would have been a landlord.
If you'd been Mr. Trump minded. Yeah, all right. Yeah. But anyway, you've been living 61 years.
I lived there 61 years.
All right, let me just get it straight if I may. Rent controlled or rent subsidized or something? Good place?
In the early days, just 1943, you just sort of moved in. I think the rent was $49.
Really high.
I was forced to move there. I was after the war. I was forced to live.
Is this uptown somewhere?
Yeah, 158th Street.
158, okay, 158. Yeah. And you lived there 61 years, from 43.
I lived there. I moved there in 1943. Yeah. I was forced by the city. If I wanted my daughter out of foster care, I would have to get an apartment. I was living with a beautiful family at 413 West 144th Street, a great landlady. And they forced me, because if I hadn't gotten an apartment so she could have a room, I wouldn't have been able to have my daughter.
And you were able to do that.
And I was able to
And you moved
do
into that place.
I moved there. I lived on the on the 6th floor.
You happy there?
Oh, well, I lived there. I've been in that building.
61 years.
Mm-hmm. 61. I moved
Long
down.
time.
1977, I had the privilege of moving down on the 2nd floor.
Uh-huh.
And so I've been there.
In that building
yeah.
you've been?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been living there all that time?
I was living there all that time.
And that's where you lived and did when you were doing all of this, really. And I'm sorry, but you have been an angel of the airways. You've been doing really good work over all that time. And that's where you lived while you were doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Correct? And that was the place that you would go home to and so forth, and you had
Mm-hmm.
your things there,
Yeah.
your possessions, your life was built there and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what happened? You said something about coming home with the key one night?
Oh, well, one night I...
Recently?
Well, what happened, they were supposed to be doing... They were supposed to repair.
They being the landlord?
That was the landlord, was supposed to be HPD, and there was complaints about the apartment, and they were supposed to be doing repairs. 3 rooms.
HPD,
that was in,
what is that?
Don't ask me.
Is it a company or something?
HPD is an agency.
An agency,
Yeah.
okay. Mm-hmm.
And they were supposed to be just coming in to do 3 rooms. That was the stipulation from the court.
And how many rooms were in the apartment?
Oh, there's 5 rooms.
There's 5, and they were going to do repair on 3 of them?
They were going to do the bathroom, the kitchen, and the room off of the kitchen.
Like standard maintenance repairs and things.
Supposed
to.
Yeah,
right, okay.
And instead of that, they just destroyed just completely demolished the apartment.
Well,
for
why? And
well,
what's going
for
on?
one, this is the process that landlords are using to get people out those apartments.
That's what you're saying. It's not only you; it's a whole
It's
lot of
not
other
only
people.
Me. What concerns me, and like I said to Harold, I'm glad it couldn't happen to a better person
Than you,
than
because
me.
you can get the word out. For one
Well,
thing.
I was determined to get the word out to let people know. What also bothered me was the fact that many seniors are losing and being forced into nursing homes.
Where they've got their whole life around them and the thing.
And no one, no politicians or no ministers or anyone spoke up. And so therefore, I just felt that if they did this to me, what were they doing to everybody else? And I often say, I'm glad they did it to me.
Okay, now what they did do was they came in telling you we're going to fix up your apartment in a way. Had they done that before over the 60 years you were there?
Well,
I mean, it's a thing that
we're
going to come and paint or something.
You're probably talking, but what happened, they had, the landlord, one landlord had sold it to another landlord, and they had come and they said they were going to repair, but they came in and did a patchwork and they never came back.
I mean, that was before this current thing, or no?
Before this had happened, but they never came back to repair.
They never came back and did it properly.
They never came back to
It's
repair.
like, they make you feel a little bit like you're a serf on a feudal estate, and the duke loses the estate in a crap game, and the people go with it.
No, but see, right now, there's a cleansing in Harlem.
Cleansing in Harlem?
A cleansing. And that's to get poor people out, or people who have lived there, and rent stabilization and rent control is on its way out.
Yeah, and they're trying to make everything be the market, and most people can't, huge proportions of the population couldn't possibly meet the market.
A woman was telling me yesterday she was paying $500 a month, and she wanted another room for her children. And they want $1,000. She said she couldn't pay $1,000 rent. How's an ordinary who's making minimum wage? How are you going to do it?
You can't possibly do it. You can't survive. You're paying 80% of your money in rent to somebody who's making... And then they want to get rid of you so they can bring in some gentrified thing for other people to use that property.
What they did to that apartment, my apartment, was to make it like a rooming house. They put locks on every door.
They did?
And they made the bathroom so small that a large person can't even walk through.
No, my Lord.
Oh yeah, they made it like a regular room in house, and that's what they do, and it's single room.
And this is a thing that's going on, and it's particularly affecting some of the older people there, the more vulnerable people.
Well,
who got a life built around a subsidy of an apartment, that kind of thing, and it happened to you. Now listen, we've only got so much time, unfortunately. But you have some pictures. I think it's from the Amsterdam Times or something, and we want to show those, okay? Before we run.
Her boy did a terrific job.
And what happened? What did he do? He came and took some pictures of your place, and we can show some of those to the audience that's viewing.
He did, or others. Many people. What I must say.
Yes.
There was many people who once that happened, and the newspapers picked it up.
Yeah.
There was many people.
You got a lot of friends in this town, Miss Rice. You understand that, right?
Well, I've been working a long time.
You have indeed, and you deserve. You haven't got nearly as many as you deserve. But at 85.
God bless
you. God bless you. Yeah. Anyway, so there was a response, and one of them was they got pictures of the place where they were violating your rights. Huh?
Well, this is it.
And they're doing it to others.
Well, that's the purpose.
Yeah, right.
Because what you begin to see, the courts and you don't
get any redress. You don't get any justice. Yeah.
No, but let me say, 517 or 516 West 174th Street. I want to get in touch with that judge because she realized that the lawyer had lied to her. And he had somehow the people were to be evicted. The landlord had sent them a notice that they had to be out in 5 days or something like that. Yeah. But those people came together. What I want to right now, before I forget it, just praise that judge for recognizing she made a mistake. And to own up to it.
Yeah, right.
Because most of the judges would have let them people would have been evicted.
Yeah,
so I want to laud her.
I think good.
She did a terrific
and we
job.
should laud those who have the ability to face up to things that have been wrong.
What happened? They came to the meeting. We've been meeting at Columbia Law School. There's a woman called Rhodes Peck, and on the 25th we're meeting. And this person came from 517, I think 517 West on 74th Street. And she was there and told about what had happened and how the judge helped. One woman there was 93 years old.
Oh, boy.
So when these landlords can do this to people, it's time that people wake up.
Let's make sure we get these pictures in, okay? Because pictures can say 1,000 words and everything. And so why don't you tell us here? We're looking at something now. Can you see it there?
Oh well, that was how the bathroom.
These are pictures of your place that you were made.
But that's how they threw all my stuff in bags. That's what they did. And half my stuff, my fax machine. There's so much that
some of your tapes. All my tapes. All your tapes that you had from
tapes and all that stuff.
They just
I
threw
don't
it
know
in
if I'll
trash
ever
bags?
see them.
They just did them in trash bags?
Well, I've never had a chance to look at any of that stuff.
Where is it? Where is it?
Oh, it's in storage. But what happened?
Yeah. Now, what is this? Now, what are we looking at here? Yeah.
That's
part of your apartment, right?
That's part of I believe I can't.
You can't see too clearly because of the light. Yeah. Okay.
But it showed you how they had stripped the walls down. That's how they had stripped the walls down. And
we got about 25 of these slides. She'll run through them and let people see.
Yeah, but that's what they did. And I came home. All my stuff was put in bags.
Oh man, you came home that night when you turned.
Well,
the
I
key?
came home that night, and by the way, let me give the person who really is good and is Beverly Grisby.
Beverly Grisby.
She's my guardian in housing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Sometimes I say, if with her knowledge, I don't know if I'd have been. I could
couldn't have managed it. You would have
sitting here because it was enough to really blow your mind.
It must
give
have
you
been
a heart attack.
You couldn't get into your...
And then what I thought about, what about all the people?
All the other people. Yeah.
Who come in and find themselves in that situation.
Yeah, what happens?
Because
they go
one
crazy.
Of the things I hear, they say you have all these services, but I don't know where they are when you need them.
Yeah, the social services?
I don't know where they are.
They're twiddling their thumbs or filling out papers or doing something, they haven't got time.
I found if you don't have a real good connect with whatever, nobody's really listening. Nobody gives a damn, you know. So I know what saddens me sometimes. I hear parents say when they need help, you know, when you get in trouble, everybody wants to know, well, why didn't you go somewhere? Yeah. One of the things you begin, I don't know of any place in here in New York that someone who gets in trouble can go to.
Well, what about all the social workers and the people of concern and all the aid societies and all that? What about all the agencies that are in place to help the less advantaged?
They probably do good work, but I'm just saying that I don't know them.
And you know this town pretty well.
Yeah,
and you know the plight of some of the poorer people, and you've been concerned with those people.
And at 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I don't know of anything. And if you go someplace, they're going to ask you a million questions before they even take you.
You got to get Form 673 off -B done right in order to be able to get into that kind of thing, right? And it's happening in the area of health and other kinds of things, and in general, it's assault upon the poor.
I hear all the time they tell you about all the services.
Yeah.
But doggone it, if you don't know somebody or have some connections, there are no services.
There are no services. You got a lot of services. You got a lot of things where people get big amounts of money in order to pay big executive directors' salaries so they can go off in a big car to a yacht.
You know what I'm saying? Well, some of them earn it, but what disturbs me, I think, mostly all, is that most of the people who are setting policies and making the rules, they've never suffered one day.
Right.
They've gone to college, they've got their
all
PhD,
the advantages,
Some of them never had any children.
They don't know anything about real life.
So they don't know nothing about real life.
Right.
And they're telling you what to do, or else they'll bring you some foreigner that can't speak English, and then you're trying to converse with them.
And the trends are getting worse, you say. You inform me, being your ear to the ground, as they say, that the trends are getting worse through time.
It's getting worse.
It's worse than it was 5 years ago.
With Bush and Pataki cutting the budget, we haven't seen anything yet.
Well, you see, Mr. Bush came in and he had to give a nearly $2 trillion tax rebate to the super wealthy people.
To the rich.
So it sets a pattern in the world too,
and all these programs now are being cut.
Yeah. Well, that's because they had to give the tax break to the people that are rich, so they can
got him.
They need
elected.
a yacht.
Yeah.
They need another yacht, or they need another Cadillac automobile.
It is sad.
And it's like that. And that's a pattern for the whole world, it seems to me, because the less advantaged countries are also being paid no attention to in order for the people that are wealthy and plutocratic owners to concentrate the wealth in the hands of fewer and fewer people, like feudalism.
The sad part about it, when you see all the homeless, and then the other thing, there's no such thing as affordable housing.
Oh. Yeah, the housing is what really is a killer.
They're making all these condominiums and co-ops, and you can't. Nobody
can afford them.
Working people can't afford them.
Of course not. No,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, this country right now is really for the rich and the well-to-do.
That's right, and that's a smaller and smaller group.
The poor people at the bottom, you know. They're completely ignored. When I saw all the programs that's being cut, I don't have it here. You have a woman called Sharon Salam, and with the foster children, and with the work that she's doing, and to know that you know,
She's been doing good work?
Her budget, oh, yes.
And her budget's being cut, I expect.
Her budget's being cut. When
Yeah,
you begin to see all the little things.
Yeah, the good things.
The good things.
Yeah, well, we did a lot of stuff. War on poverty, and it was all cut. We had to
Well,
go
the
fight
war
that
on
war
poverty,
in Vietnam
when you
for
think,
one thing.
there was never no war on poverty.
Well,
because, no, there was never no war on poverty because, look, the people, you know, one of the things I think in Adam Powell's last talk, he spoke about the war on poverty because it was many of the people who they called all your jobs was well-paying jobs, but it never came down to the bottom.
To the people.
To the people.
That's a real problem on this planet, that there are people that are at the top. They have no idea what it is.
Well, that's what I was saying.
And they don't care about the people.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's very dangerous.
To me, what it is every day today, it's a job for somebody to, but for the poor people, there is nothing.
And most of the people in the world are poor. Most people in the world are poor, and they don't have any.
I'd like to talk about the people here in the city.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to talk about the city.
Yeah, I know. All right,
who being forced out.
Absolutely.
Through all kinds of tricks that they use against people.
Yeah, by the clever sharks.
And knowing that, and again I say, working with the grassroots people.
Right.
Again, I'm saying most of the people who are making decisions up here don't know a damn thing about what happened at the bottom.
You know, that's
They've
very
never, and that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that's a lot. What you're saying is a lot.
That's all I'm saying.
Because you know, everybody matters, and you cannot just keep doing it that way, or else there's going to be a bubbling up. You know, the human organism. There's 100 trillion cells in a human organism, and they all matter. In your body, in my body, 100 trillion, and they're all overlaid. They all matter, and you can't just leave people aside and let them die of AIDS or die of whatever because you're giving everything to the wealthy and care only for them. And that's the pattern in the world today. Well, and it's something that's going to have to be challenged, don't you?
Because
fundamentally, it has to be challenged.
I might not see it, Harold. But this thing is going to explode.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, yeah.
I'm thinking
Only got about a minute left, darling.
Seymour Melman.
Yeah, I love Seymour Melman.
Yes,
he's a good friend.
Economy.
Yeah.
Is just bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And when I see that, again, I go back to the black men who are out of work.
Yeah.
And can't get no work.
Yeah.
Still, every day I things being built that I don't see them. And then what happened, they bring in the immigrants and pay them the most minimum wage.
Yeah, right.
You know, the minimum wage, and many times they work and some of them don't get paid at, you know. So there's a whole lot.
Yeah, it's an explosive situation.
It's an
and if there's somebody who's been helping to, I'm sorry we run out of time. We're out of time an hour. It's your pleasure to have the perceptions of a true angel of the airways, if I may say so. Florence M. Rice, and she's a pioneer in public access and communication about programming for and about and with true concern for the folks. And I thank you and salute you very much for that long career. And thank you also for pioneering in this effort that you're doing now to help others that are being disadvantaged by the sharks that too often cleverly run the system.
And it still is going on.
It's still going on, and it needs to be, and it may be the situation is one that is explosive and is coming to a major change. And thank you very much for helping to bring the program, and it might help bring that appropriate explosion to a reality. In the spirit, maybe of Adam Clayton Powell.
Oh God, yes.
Anyway, thanks. I'm sorry we've only got an hour, but we, we got this in and everything.
Do you think?